Oh, and it even lets me know we're live streaming. Okay, perfect. All
Yeah.
right, are we ready to get started?
Yeah. I'm ready. I'm
Let's
excited.
do it. Well, hi
Yay!
everyone.
Our first live stream.
We're doing it. We're doing big things. Thanks so much for joining, everyone. It is a really fun topic, I think, today that seems to come up a lot in my work and in April's, and so we'll kind of get into it. But for starters, my name is Mollie Lacher, and I am the founder of Sunny Care Services. So essentially what I do is I help families when they lose a loved one. So I help take on all of those executor related tasks like calling the banks, calling the credit card companies, calling the dreaded Comcast of the world to close out accounts. And I work with people who are single executors. There's just one of them. And sometimes I work with co-executors, co-trustees. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. April, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I'm April Harris Jackson. I am the owner and founding attorney of Graceful Aging Legal Services. So we kind of deal with all of those life transitions that you cannot avoid. So, when you enter adulthood and it's time to make an estate plan, that's us. Also probate and what's known in the legal industry as elder law. So basically all of those legal transitions that you make related to getting older. So that's us.
So something that has come up a lot in, I think, our personal lives, of being named as co-executors with our siblings, and then also just again, both of us seeing this play out in the client sphere. I had a lot of questions for April about when actually does it make sense to do this co-executor, co-trustee thing, because from my vantage point, it can feel sometimes like a burden, like you're always having to tag team with someone. So we're going to talk about this topic. When does it feel right to do that? What are the appropriate situations that you should name a co-trustee, and just like, let's talk about what that conversation should sound like. So before we get into all of like the legal things, we do need to break this down. It's like, what makes sense for just the lay person who doesn't speak all the legal jargon. So first of all, April, tell us like very simply, what is an executor? What's a trustee? What's the difference?
Yeah, and I do want to put it out there that this is designed as a Q&A. So Mollie has a lot of questions, but if you're watching this, you may have questions too. So feel free to put them in the chat. If you're in the Zoom call, feel free to unmute yourself and ask them. But we want to make sure questions get answered. That's why we're here. So Mollie, what a executor or a trustee, or we also serve in our clients who are conservators or hope to be conservators. Hope to be is probably a strong feeling. But all of those roles fall under what is called a fiduciary. And a fiduciary is someone who is tasked with carrying out actions in someone else's best interest. So if I use the term fiduciary, just know that I'm just talking about somebody who is acting on behalf of someone else and in someone else's best interest. So you have certain responsibilities, like you can't just take all their money and go buy a beach bar in Fiji. I know we love that example. I'm like, take your own money to buy a beach bar in Fiji. Leave their money in the bank account.
That's right.
So when we talk about an executor, also sometimes known as, a male executor is an executor, a female executor is an executrix. So we just say personal representative. And that is someone who is tasked with administering an estate. So the way that, this was great because someone said the other day, they were like, if you're an executor, someone has exited. If you're an executor, somebody is passed on, somebody is dead.
Yes. Okay.
And so that's an executor. If you are an agent under a power of attorney or an attorney, in fact, there are, a lot of times We just say, if you are a power of attorney, and that's
Yeah.
okay. As long as
Yeah.
everybody knows what we're talking about, that's fine. If you're a power of attorney, someone is alive. An agent means they're alive.
Mhm.
And then if it's a trustee, it could be either. They could be, you set up a trust while you're alive, and it carries on while you're alive, and then it continues while you are passed. Or you could set up a trust in your will to carry out your wishes after you've passed. But generally, a standalone trust is for somebody who is alive to continue after their death.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, I didn't have a legal background before I started Sunny. And so all of these terms always just get so muddy. And I feel like the people who are not enmeshed in this every day do need that, like, back me up. What does this mean? So, okay. So now we've understood executor, they've exited, trustee could be here or not here. So what then does it mean to be a co-executor or a co-trustee? Does that mean we get to split the responsibilities, or does it mean just like one person's the figurehead doing all the work, the other person's just hanging in the background but getting the credit? What does this look like for families who are considering this?
Yeah. So usually, and the kind of the best case scenario, and what we frequently will do, is that one person. So for example, you have an agent who makes healthcare decisions, and you have an agent who handles finances.
Mhm.
So they are not technically co-fiduciaries because they're handling different responsibilities. Um, they're not named in the same document.
Got it.
If they're named in the same document, that's when we're talking about co-fiduciaries. So co-trustees, um, co-executors. And the way that that works in real life is that the co-fiduciaries have to figure that out for themselves. Unless the document, I mean, you could in your trust or in your will say, I want um, Susie to be the person who deals with the banks, and I want, Joe to be the person who deals with my property. That's probably not, like, while that's great in terms of having a plan, if you've and it may very well be that Susie and Joe already plan to do that. But if they, let's say that something happens and maybe Joe moves out of state, is he still going to deal with the real property?
Right.
When it comes time to execute your will, to carry it out. Or maybe, Susie's, maybe Susie's not in a great financial position, and you wouldn't want her taking care of those responsibilities. Maybe she's just not in a good mental place. I think we've all, after living through 2 or 3 years of a pandemic, sometimes we're just not able to handle, we don't have the bandwidth to do certain
Right.
things.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so those are things that we want to consider. And so, um, you know, in reality, the co-executors, co-trustees will figure it out for themselves who's going to do what.
Got it. Okay. And so that feels like you have got to be in sync with whoever you have also been named with. So, like, tell us about some scenarios where it makes sense to do this co-executor, co-trustee. How much do family dynamics play into that? I would imagine a lot, because I get along great with my sister, but every once in a while we get sideways on something. So how do you know when it's right, and what kind of conversations should you be having, family dynamics, all of those things?
Mhm. Yeah, so basically family dynamics are really everything in deciding whether or not to appoint a co-executor, a co-trustee, Generally, my preference, as an attorney, when I'm counseling clients or potential clients, is that I would rather have a one person in charge and then someone backing them up. So someone who will step in if for whatever reason they are unable or unwilling at a later point. If a client says, I really want my kids to serve together, I really want my kids to be co-trustees, I'm going to be like, how well do your kids get along? If they say, my kids grew up fussing and fighting and never grew out of that,
Right.
I'm probably going to be like, call a different attorney because I'm not writing that for you.
And we talked about this before, April, but this also, and I think you condone this, is not the opportunity to mend those relationships by naming co-executors, co-trustees. That should not be the play here.
No. And a lot of people, like when I talk to people, they're afraid of hurting someone's feelings. They're afraid of not treating their children equally. They want to make sure that their children know that they love them and they want to include them. And while that is wonderful, in theory, the fact of the matter is that people have different strengths. People need different things, even as children, your children need different things from you. And as an adult, and as someone looking at creating your estate plan, you need different things from them. Your child who is a banker is probably better equipped to serve as your financial power of attorney than your child who is who runs a beach bar in Fiji. Now, I could be wrong about that, because if you run a beach bar, you probably got some decent business skills.
That's a business. That's a business.
But they're also in Fiji, so accessing banks might be a little difficult. But yeah, so those are all things to consider. How well do the children get along? What are their different strengths? Who is organized? Who is trustworthy? Like the kid who was always asking you for money or to bail them out of jail or a bad investment or a bad relationship, or the kid who always needed your help is maybe not the child that should be taking care of you.
Yes, I love that. And I think also you've said this before, it's like it is a good quality also to have, to recognize when you shouldn't do everything yourself and knowing when it is appropriate to hire out. Like, hey, I've never done my taxes before. I should probably hire a CPA to do mom's taxes, since I don't know what I'm doing here. I think that self-awareness is a big component as well.
Right. And just because you name one child instead of the other, or instead of naming both of them or all five of them, those are like the worst. Please don't name all five of your children as co-executors. Just because you name one person doesn't mean that the others can't help.
Yeah. Right.
And if they have a good relationship, they're going to help anyway. So, the family can absolutely stand together and support each other and help each other through whatever it is you're asking them to help with. They just don't have to actually be named in the documents.
I think that's a good word. That is such a good word people need to hear more often, is like, just because you are the named person doesn't mean the siblings get an out. They can also step in.
And I frequently, kind of like, and, we use the word decision maker, so your executor isn't really they're kind of your decision maker, but you've already made the decisions, they're carrying them out. your, the trustee is kind of the decision maker, but really what I kind of talk about is this person is the mouthpiece. This person is the one who is ultimately responsible for saying, this is what mom or dad wanted, this is what we're going to do. But, in an ideal scenario, the entire family knows that and is discussing it, and is really supporting each other. Um,
Mhm.
and then even when, for whatever reason, there's a family rift, it's still that person's job to be the mouthpiece.
Yes.
Um, so
I love that. Okay. And so I think that something we should talk about too is, okay, this person being whoever is the decision maker, whoever is the mouthpiece. I think that there is a big rumor going around that people want to name co's because they say, I don't want to name one singular person, because what if they take all the money and they set up a bar in Fiji? And like, is that even in the realm of possibility? And what do you say to that?
it's possible, but it's not likely if you choose the right person. Um, and hopefully you are being, hopefully you're putting a lot of thought, and when I say a lot of thought, you may not even need to put a lot of thought in it. Hopefully you don't even need to put a lot of thought into it. But who is the person in your family? And we normally talk about, you're going to appoint your adult children. It doesn't have to be your adult children. It could be your sibling, it could be a family friend. um, Most of the time somebody is appointing someone within their support system. um, but it should be someone who is absolutely trustworthy. Like, there is no question in your mind that if you gave them your checkbook, that all of those checks would either continue to be in your checkbook, or they'd be used to pay your mortgage, your rent, your water, your electric, your medical bills. Like, none of them would be like, they felt like having a really nice dinner and went out to use your money.
Right.
Or set up a beach bar in Fiji. Um,
And there are ramifications for running away with all the money.
yes. So if you appoint somebody again, a fiduciary is responsible to act in the other person's best interest, the principal. And so if a fiduciary acts outside of those responsibilities, that's a breach of fiduciary duty. And so you can sue them, to get your money back. And so that's an option. Usually, and we certainly see some abuses of that. Usually when it is somebody that is, sometimes it's a family member. A lot of times it is a family member, but it's like, again, it is somebody who maybe should not have signed a document to begin with. So like if you're an adult child or a family member, or whatever your relationship is, and you kind of question whether somebody understands what they're signing, that's a red flag. That's a big red flag. But in general, if you are signing a document and you are naming somebody that you have no question that they would spend your money on you, or possibly your dogs, because your dogs need to eat too.
Mhm.
Basically,
Right.
you
Right.
and
Don't forget the dogs.
don't forget the dogs. Sorry, I hear my little pitter patters in the back.
Oh yeah.
But basically you and your dependents. But they should be absolutely trustworthy. Like, there should never be any question that, they would do the right thing. They should be organized, so like they're yeah. They're going to um, keep good records, somebody who can balance a checkbook, um, and that everyone else also, it's not like they're kind of everybody's worried they're a little shady, even though you trust them. Because so for an executor, ultimately they need to be able to show where the money has gone, show what money came in, what money got spent, and where the money is going to the heirs or beneficiaries. If it's a trust, same thing. They need to show where is the money. And so ultimately, hopefully you'll have somebody who, if your family calls them up and says, I'm concerned that there's not enough money when there were like $5 million yesterday. This person can tell them, they don't necessarily need to go penny by penny yet, but they can say, well, this is what the money has been spent for. It was really expensive, or the money's still there. It's just maybe not where you can see it.
And like ultimately, I just think there's a lot of misguided thoughts, we'll call them, about this role and it being more of a gift than it honestly is. I think that more people should be totally frank that this is a slog to be an executor. It is not fun. It's not even honoring from your parents. It's just saying, we trust you to do this role. But serving in this capacity for families, and you as well, April, that it's a lot of work. I mean, I've heard that when somebody passes, there are no less than 100 tasks that the family or somebody needs to take on to close out this person's life effectively and accurately. And I feel that. I'm sure you do too. And that takes organization and a real detail orientation that, quite frankly, just people may lack. And especially when there's you have a full life going on beyond probably what's happening in the estate. So what would you say when people are just like, I don't have anyone that fits this bill? I don't know anyone that would want to do this. I can't even split it into co-executor, co-trustee. What do you say to that?
Yeah. So, we will have clients who will ask us like to, we'll kind of work through like who is in their life that they may trust. Because sometimes, they will oversee people just out of um just kind of blind spots when you're having these emotional conversations. But some people also just don't, it's not that they don't have anyone, it's that they don't trust anyone at that level, or they shouldn't trust anyone at that level. Um, and so if that's the case, then we really, encourage, considering a professional. Obviously there are professional executors, professional and personal representatives. Basically, if it is a trust with a lot of money, we're going to refer them to a professional trustee. If it's something like an executor, they don't have anyone yet, we're probably referring them to you, Molly. We will have clients that, will ask if we will take that on, and that is something that we will consider based on the circumstances, but we really don't. That is not our preference, because we're going to, we don't want to charge our hourly rate for carrying out an estate when it can be done at a much lower rate.
Mhm.
So that is, we're just going to encourage, and the same thing for a power of attorney or just anything that you need. I mean, there are care managers, there are other options for when you don't have someone immediately present, or someone that you kind of, and sometimes it's, I've had situations where it's not that people didn't want their family to know, they just didn't want to know things until they were dead.
Right.
So they just didn't want to have those conversations, which is a little difficult. And the other thing to think about too is, your family doesn't have to serve in this capacity. They can decline to be the trustee or to be the executor. And we have seen that too. Um, so yeah, that's, just keeping in mind that there are other options, and sometimes bringing a professional in from the from the beginning, is the better choice than having somebody kind of quit in the middle when they realize how much work it is. But just have the same person see it through from the beginning to end.
Ah, such good words. Well, that is all the questions I had. I know I stole the show there. Were there any other questions that we could answer from participants or anything that was submitted?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Let's check the Facebook. I know we kind of threw it up on the live chat fairly quickly last minute. I'm not seeing anything, but we do have this recorded, so we can post it. I know, Molly, I don't think this was on your Facebook group. What did I just do? I don't think this is on your Facebook, but we can certainly put it there and share it later. So if anybody does have any questions, I know, Molly, do you want to, excuse me, do you want to share your email if people want to email you with questions, or get on or your website? So if people want to, I know Molly has an amazing newsletter, you guys, that we, it's always filled with fun little tidbits and great articles from people that Molly has spoken to, or just things Molly has learned. So I always enjoy reading it.
Well, thank you, April. What a high compliment. I so appreciate that. Well, yes, Molly at Sunny Care Services, and that's SUNNYCARE Services, just spelled like you think. And I did want to just say too, if anyone is thinking they still want to serve in this capacity, but they just need a little bit of help, I have created a course that walks you through that. That basically gets you the information that you need in a general sense of just like, how do I know what to do and when to do it and how that works.
Yeah. And I've seen a preview. It's great, you guys. So if you just need a little bit of help, or are kind of curious what all is going to go into it, definitely check out Molly's course, sign up for her newsletter. And if you have any questions, you can check out Molly's website, sunnycareservices.com. Of course, I'm online at galsnashville.com. That's GALS Nashville.com. Or you can just Google us, Graceful Aging Legal Services. And we hope to see you all again soon. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye, Molly.
Bye.